Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. I just wanted to welcome everybody to our very first hangout. This is John from the Little Shop of Magic today, and I am hanging out with Ray from Flex Coast Designs. We are doing this hangout live, mostly because we want to encourage you guys to join us and ask questions. So please don't be shy. Feel free to ask whatever you'd like. And without further ado, I am going to pass this over to Ray to introduce himself. So let me see if I can do this right. Can you hear me, Ray? Ray, can you hear me? Okay, forgive us, folks. It looks like we got some technical difficulties here. Wave? Ray, if you can hear me, wave at me. Okay, so you can hear me, we can hear you. Try going to the gear again. See if you can see if it put it at the wrong. We don't hear you. And it looks like we lost Ray. Okay, not too bad for the first time. So we're already having some serious technical difficulties. Anyways, so I guess I'll spend a couple of minutes while Ray tries to reconnect to talk to you guys. Again, I'm John. I own the Little Shop of Magic. It is a tabletop game store out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I would say sunny Las Vegas, Nevada, but today it's raining for a change. So um, the idea here is to start doing these hangouts and basically kind of talk a little bit about the gaming industry from our perspective. So from the people, I guess, on the inside, been doing this for about 19 years, and there's a lot of things that people don't know about or they're interested about. So we're going to try to bring them to you guys here and go from there. If you guys will forgive me for just 1 second, I'm going to get off and come right back.
All right, I'm here.
You're here and we can hear you. All right, that's good. That's that's great. Okay, so sorry for the problems, folks. Comedy of errors there. But anyways, so I'm gonna turn this over to Ray. Ray, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do exactly with Flex Coast Designs? Is that we got that right?
Yes, sir. Um, I am originally from California. I moved out here about 5 years ago. Somebody actually approached me about being a commission painter for a Crimson Fist Army. That if you guys been to the site, you might have seen it. And basically, I've been in the hobby for about 10 years now. So everything with the hobby, I've actually done it. I've sold the GW product. I've built, created multiple pieces of terrain as well as models, like thousands of models at this point. And then I just kind of progressively went from being a part-time gig to actually trying to make it a full business, which I really decided to do at the beginning of this year, late last year, beginning of this year. And it's hard, but it's something that I'd rather be doing this than anything else that there is to do.
So, how did you start? I mean, okay, so you just started as a business, but let's rewind the time clock a little bit here. And how did you get started in this hobby? What was your first like love?
The first love was I was walking by a Games Workshop store. I went by it probably like 3 or 4 times, and
Ah, yes,
finally,
the evil miniatures empire. They suck a whole bunch of people in.
I'm telling you, I saw an Imperial Fist Army in the window, and I was like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." And then I just went for it, and then Brandy, my wife, she actually was the original one that was like, "Well, let's go inside and check it out." And we ended up buying the starter box of Space Marines versus Dark Eldar, and from there, she was pregnant at the time with our oldest son, and we're like, okay, well, we need something to do instead of partying since we don't party anymore. So we bought the first box of starter box, and that was 10 years ago now. So
So you said you started with 40K. Did you pretty much stick with that, or you're doing other stuff now too? I mean, I know just by looking at your site that you paint a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I still have the biggest love for 40K, but with this business, it's kind of cool because I get to paint all the models that I want to buy, but I shouldn't buy. And then those people are like, "Hey, can you paint this stuff?" Absolutely. I want to paint everything, and I'm not afraid to paint anything. So I'll paint anything, and I play a lot of different things. Like I have Infinity, I have Heavy Gear Blitz, I have Fantasy, I have War Machine, Horde. I name it, and I probably have it or I've had it before. And I like every game, and board games included. Like I'm doing Sedition Wars for Anthony Carrillo right now, and he's a great guy, but it's taken me forever to get this this thing painted for him. But just bear with me a little bit longer.
Ah, man, I'm drawing a blank. Sedition Wars. Which one is that one?
That's the one where it's like almost like Space Hulk kind of feel to it, and it's like colonial kind of Marines, and they're fighting these
Oh yeah, yeah,
mutations.
you're right. It's
Like
one of
Deep
those
Space.
miniatures, yeah, miniatures heavy board games. Yeah, you're right. Pretty much like Space Hulk. I got it now. So that brings me to something. One of the things I have trouble with when I paint, that becomes my baby. I don't want to give that up. Do you have any like reservations about a piece that really comes out great and then having to surrender it to the customer? Or?
And not anymore. Like as long as I get good pictures now, I think I'm not really that tied to it. There's certain things though. Now what I realize in my painting is that if I want to keep a painting after I've actually painted it, that means that it's a good piece. If not, then I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't so good, and then I have to kind of tighten up the shot groups on it. But as far as like keeping things now, no, not so much. It's to a point where like I love my Necrons, but if somebody offered me like $2,000 to take a 1,500 point army, you can have it. I'll paint another one.
All right, so you guys heard it here, man. That's a sales pitch. If you guys want a fully painted, I've seen this army. It's gorgeous. Are you throwing in the award-winning display board too, or?
Negative. That's going to be
All
at
right,
least
so
3 to 4.
so let me ask you a question. What made you make the decision to go from, because this is a hobby and it's a passion. I've been running my store for 19 years. I gotta tell you, it's different when you uh, make the leap from one side of the counter to the other. Things really change. It's a job. In a way, I feel it takes a little bit away from my hobby. I mean, I get to do what I enjoy. It's great, but what made you decide to turn this into an actual career?
I think it was more. I was fortunate enough to have a wife that supported what I've done in the last 5 years. And when I kind of finally decided, I had so much stuff throughout the years, like collecting army after army of 40K and fantasy and everything else. And it just got to a point where I was like, look, I think I can do this full time. I've had some really good pieces that I think people have liked and my customers have liked. And I feel like I was up to par, with other people. But I'm very humble about what I do. I don't believe that I'm the best painter out there at all, but I believe that I want to learn as much as I can. So, you know, the transition for me was just, my wife seeing that I actually could make money doing it, and me showing that I could, and that's when she was like all behind me, and once she was behind me, everything else was really easy.
So your family kind of plays a big part in helping you out and moral support. Do they do anything else for you? Or?
Yeah, absolutely, huge, huge part. Like I'm fortunate to have like family and friends that are willing to come over if I'm like, hey, I'm in a crunch right now. Like I'm working on all this terrain. Hey, do you think you could help out? I have my wife will be the first one to step up and oh, I can do gap filling. She's not able to do the painting and stuff because that's not really what she's practiced doing, but she knows how to gap fill.
Mhm.
So,
Well, well, that's cool. Maybe she needs to hang out with my wife more often because she helps with a lot of stuff, mostly cooking. But yeah, and I can't get her to touch the terrain. So, um, And that's actually interesting what you just mentioned because I know for a lot of people, painting feels like this daunting, scary task. And the reality is, I find that with myself, I am my worst critic. So what helps me out is to take miniatures out when I find my older miniatures and look at the stuff that I've done 4 or 5 years ago and compare them to the stuff that I'm doing now. I mean, I am slow. I'm a slow painter. But at the very
Sure.
least, I can see this kind of progression that I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? 3 years ago, I sucked so bad, and now I don't suck as much, basically.
Right. Yeah,
So
I completely do that. I'm very much like look at what you've done in the past, and not only that, but when you plan for an army and you learn specific techniques that are going to help you to achieve what you want, always do a test model too, because that's the part of it where I think a lot of people don't do, and they just jump into 10 men at a time. If you do one single model, you do it to the best that you can, and then you have something to go off of that's going to help you achieve your overall look for the full army.
So when you do this test model, is it like a complete scrap piece, in other words, or do you dive in with something like a character that you're going to use later in the army? Because I mean, that could go either way, right? It could be really cool, or you got to scrap everything. So what do you do?
Absolutely. I usually start with like an infantry. Like if I have my own, single model that's a Space Marine, I'll go ahead and just paint it up. Like I've probably painted the same Space Marine probably 10 to 15 times. Sorry, my son was distracting me.
That's okay.
Uh, yeah, so I've painted this one model 10 to 15 times. It has no more detail, but it's more just for the overall color look of it. And it's just one of those things where if you don't do that first initial test model, then you really aren't going to help yourself out because you're going to go through 5 or 6 different color schemes and eventually you're going to be like, oh, that's the one I want. But if you just start with one, plan it out before you get to it, and then know the colors you're going to use, then it should work out a lot better. That's what I do.
All right. All right, so let's assume you're like me, and God knows I'm partially colorblind. I suck at this stuff, so usually I change my mind 4 or 5 times, right? What do you use to strip models? Because I know, like, I can tell people right off the bat, there are some things you got to be really careful with plastic. I've made, well, Tyranid creatures out of Space Marines because they just melted basically. But so what do you use to strip? You messed up the original one. You don't like the color pattern. Where do you go from there?
Um, I if I have to strip a model, which I don't recommend doing, like it's better just to buy new models if you can. But if you do have to strip, what I use, you can get it at the 99-cent store. It's called LA Totally Awesome, and that stuff is the same as Simple Green as far as the way that it uses like the cleaner to strip off your paint, but I feel like it's less abrasive on the model too. So you have to just scrub it down really well with a toothbrush, and then honestly most of it will come off. Sometimes you have to soak it more than once, and I recommend soaking it about 6 to 8 hours, and then if you have to do another dip of it, but just let it soak in there. That stuff's great.
All right, so going back to the switch between hobby to business, so what's different for you right now? Like, has your hobby changed now that it's kind of a job? Are you able to juggle both? What do you do?
The hobby is not there as much for me. What the good part is that part of our hobby is painting. So for me, the painting part is now the main part of my hobby. So even though I don't get to get as many games in, I still get part of our hobby. So the game part, I used to be the hardcore gamer that was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to win as hard as I can, and um, that gets old. Just like if you're painting all the time, you want to start playing again. But right now, I just don't have time. I have no time but to work, and I'm lucky if I can get my own models in. Like the Armies on Parade, that was just one of those things where I had to aside 2 weeks of time just knowing that's all I was going to work on. And when you have something like that, it's just rough, like to do that.
Yeah, I don't. I've never been able to be. Oh, I got a tournament tomorrow. I need to crank out 10 models. Like I said, I'm a very slow painter. So there's definitely some talent there of people that are able to manage their time that way. I'm just not one of the ones that can do it. But I agree with you. One of the things we get asked a lot, oh, well, we get asked, we could talk to, and said that it's great. This is the world's greatest job. All you're doing is playing games all day. And the reality is that's the last thing I do. In 19 years of doing business, I think I've gained less and less every year as the business has picked up. So.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm noticing that now. I think people think that it's well, there's the other side of it too, where people think that I'm playing with toys all day long, where if they don't know about our hobby. So for me, I'm like, it's hard to explain to people what I do now. Like when I'm at football practice for my kids, and I'm trying to explain, yeah, I paint these small miniatures. They're like, you do it toys or what? I'm like,
when
no.
when you deal with the commoners, the easiest thing to do is just say you're an artist. I mean, that's gonna save you a lot of time and effort, man. Because I've tried, and it's like, you sell games? Yes, I sell games, and that's about where I leave it. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more
They
about
think, oh,
flexible
it's
systems.
fine because he's an artist.
Yeah, and then you can be as quirky as you want, right? You don't even have to justify how much money you're making. Real quick, what would you say? I know several painters. I know several people that own uh, painting studios. If you had to pick a couple of things that make your studio unique, what would you say what would be those things?
I think the main thing is just the desire to want to put out good work. I don't want anything to leave that's, that I didn't put everything I could into it or give the customers the money that they paid for it. Because, that's part of it too, is that sometimes people are paying so much money, but then they get the product back, and if it's not a local person that you're buying it from, then you really can't do much about it. You're kind of just stuck with that paint, even though it could have been, less than subpar. For us, for me, right now I have one other guy that's about to come on, and two other guys that I think are going to do part time with me. But I just want quality work. That's all I want, and I want to meet deadlines. Like sometimes you're not always able to meet the exact day, but if it's a tournament or something, I'm guaranteeing you that I will get those models to you to ensure that you're able to play with those models. Like
So
that's
we go ahead, finish off. Sorry.
yeah, that's my main thing. I want to put quality work out. Everything that I do, not just the high paid ones or anything else. If it's a single character, I still want to make it the best that I can.
Sure, and that's a very important point actually for anybody that's thinking about doing this, to make a living or supplemental income. For me as a store owner, I don't. I know some stores run their own painting business or have people on staff that do it. We're not interested in that, so what we do is we typically refer people, and I can tell you the easiest way to get off my referral list is when you not necessarily fail to meet a deadline, but you consistently promise something and then fail to deliver on that. Because the problem is, if you say, look, it's going to take me 6 months and it takes you 5, that's great. But if you say it's going to take 6 months and every time you come out on 10, 12, and longer than that, that's going to be an issue for me to be able to refer you a customer. And I would imagine it's a problem for you. You're not going to get that repeat customer. So.
Right. Yeah. And I've run into that in the past too, where you swear that you can do it, but life gets in the way. And as long as you have good communication with somebody and let them know, like, hey, I got this going on right now. Life does get in the way, and sometimes I've run into it where it's the opposite end, and somebody couldn't pay right away. So I think it's just all communication. You got to tell people what's going on and talk about it, and let them know, hey, I got this going on. Hey, I'm trying to do this right now. I think that helps a lot.
All right, so we got actually a question posed. They wanted to know if Cardinal Fashion wants to know if you would paint 15 millimeter Napoleonics. Um, ever
Yeah,
mess with any
absolutely.
in that scale?
I have
Okay.
not.
Biggest.
I'll try anything though. I'm not really. I've done Inquisitor scale. I'm not sure what scale that is. I think that's close to that size.
Well, actually, Inquisitor scale is the 54 millimeters. You're talking more like along the Epic 40K.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a few Flames of War things. I haven't done much, but I've done Heavy Gear Blitz,
Hmm.
and that's about that scale.
Yeah, usually the biggest challenges with historicals and specifically Napoleonics is exact color patterns. People tend to get really precise about the shade and what's supposed to go where because that's the main distinguishing figures features between the units is just that the flags and yes, the way they're painted. So let me
Absolutely.
ask you.
For historics, it's I know that people want their historics to look a specific way. So absolutely, if like you have reference material for me, I'll do the research. I don't mind doing that at all to ensure that you're getting what you want.
Okay, cool. So let me ask a question. You mentioned that you have one part-time employee. You're thinking about bringing on some other people. What's your interview process? How somebody decides they want to start working for your studio? What do you put them through?
Right now, the interview process is it's not much. It's somebody that just needs to work and wants to work. Because I feel like I can teach anybody anything. I just don't believe in holding secrets or anything else. Like if I have the information, I'm going to give it to you. And if you, as long as you can follow the steps, you're going to be able to do what I do. It's not anything that's going to be out of control. Like, yeah, you have to have some patience more than anything, but um, the biggest thing is just somebody that's going to be consistent because I can't afford right now to have somebody that's not there to try to help. Like if you want to work, I'm going to give you work and I'm going to try as hard as I can to, teach you what I can, but somebody has to be able to absorb that as well. But if they have some experience, it's even better. Like right now, I have a buddy, he's just been out of work. He has no experience, but he wants to learn. So, I can do terrain, I can do base code, stuff like that to teach him. But as far as like somebody that's doing commission work like I am, they have to have some kind of experience. They have to, show that they've done commissions before. If they don't have all the details down, that's great because I can help with that too.
Gotcha. So basically, there's some amount of just grunt work that goes on that is a little more not so requiring of skill, and then you're looking for specific things from your actual, painters. Am I correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The skill comes with practice. That's something that it's just like anything else. It takes you practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. It's just like anything else.
Gotcha. So, how big of a boost was it for you, and how important was it to win the Armies on Parade? For you, anybody that's joined us that doesn't know what Armies on Parade is, it's basically a Games Workshop. Again, if you don't know who Games Workshop is, they are a gigantic miniatures manufacturer. Their biggest properties are Warhammer and Warhammer 40K. And every year they put on a big challenge, basically. And Ray, you want to describe it a little bit more in detail to me?
Yeah, yeah. Games Workshop, it's just they are known for just always having something new for their miniatures as well. So they're the largest company, I think, by far as far as miniature gaming goes. Um, but the Armies on Parade, it's basically the Golden Demon and Armies on Parade. Um, there's a Slayer Sword winner, which that guy's won multiple categories where it can be from a squad to a single character in 40K fantasy, um, The Hobbit, or Lord of the Rings. And then there's also the most for that is the winners for the Slayer Sword. Whoever gets the most trophies for that is the winner of the Slayer Sword. So then you have what I did, which was the Armies on Parade, where you're presenting the full army and its display to go with it. So that was the category that I planned for months. I wasn't one of those guys that just was like, hey, I feel like just doing it. No, I drew everything out. I, you know, really studied exactly what I was going to do. I went from drawing to drawing, and you start seeing what's going to work, what's not going to work. There's all kinds of ideas, but as long as you keep it going, the Armies on Parade was it was huge for me. It was one of those contests where it was either going to decide whether I was going to be a commission painter full time or whether I was going to go back to work and try to find another job. And really, I pulled multiple jobs after Armies on Parade, so it was really big for me.
So so basically, I would equate this to winning the Oscar or an Emmy. It puts you on the map. And you said that after that happened, you ended up picking up work because of that, or is it just, what do you do for
Absolutely.
marketing? So Armies and Parade was big. What were you doing before that? What are you doing after that
You
for
know,
marketing?
before it was word of mouth. It was all just people talking and friends referring other friends. And from that, though, what I ended up starting to do for marketing, I have a buddy at Battle Foam. He also does 40K radio,
And
and
let me interrupt you for just 1 second. In case you guys don't know what Battle Foam is a company that basically specializes in army transport cases. Once you get these miniatures nicely painted and put together, the last thing you want to do is go to a convention and open up a bag of just loose pieces of metal that have shattered everywhere. So Battle Foam is famous for basically creating a process where they custom cut the foam to fit the model better. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. But so I have this buddy. He was actually one of the first guys that taught me how to paint. He taught me how to paint faces, and this was 10 years ago in L.A. Battle Bunker, which was actually in Westminster. It's kind of like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. But so he taught me, but I've known this guy for years. He moved out to Arizona. He joined the battle. He opened his own shop out there in Arizona called, I think it was the Empire. And then from there,
I
he
think I
actually,
think it was Empire Games. Is that the one you're talking about?
I believe that's what it was. It was another guy, I think his name's Brock, that owns it as well. But I guess he sold um, his share over to whoever owns it now. But from there, I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking.
No, that's fine.
But
No, I'm sidetracking myself, but a small one thing people should understand about the gaming community, if you try to work in it, it is a very tightly and small knit community. Brock is actually a customer of mine from the store up in Flagstaff, Arizona. So
that's great. Yeah, yeah, and that's like a few guys from here. They know him too, so it's kind of cool. And then like I said, so the guy that I know, his name's Kyle. He's a great guy. He kind of, just kind of supported me. Like I think as being a new business owner as well as Little Shop of Magic, when I have questions that I'm asking, they can kind of guide you because they've been in the hobby. So that's sometimes your best resource is just people that you've known that are doing well in the hobby or trying to move forward with their hobby to make it a business. So advertising wise, like I actually have a spot on 40K radio, tonight as well. Um, they're so busy though, and I've been going back and forth with Kyle a little bit, but advertising has all been word of mouth, and then Facebook pages, and trying to do all the social media stuff, and trying to do blog stuff now, and that stuff is just it's daunting. It's like a job on top of a job. I think I
yeah,
spent a full week not even painting just to try to get social media right.
and for those of you that are just joining us, you just missed the debacle at the beginning where we had some serious technical difficulties. So there's a learning process, and this is our so if you are just joining, this is John from the Little Shop of Magic. I'm talking to Ray from Flexco Studios, and this is our first kind of thing like this that we're doing live. So forgive any mistakes, and hopefully I'll have some time to edit this once it ends up on YouTube. But we'll see how that goes too, because it's not like I'm a video editor by trade. So, all right. So you said that about 7 months.
Yeah, yeah. That I started.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah, I would say it was really. I think it was about November of last year when I finally was decided to make the full jump into it. Like I said, this is going to be my year, like 2013. That's like 13 has always been my lucky number. So I was like, this is going to be my year this year. And I'm not even lying. I've had so many good things happen this year over everything else that I just can't. I'm very happy with the way things are working out. I'm tired. I'm pretty tired right now, but
I,
it's a good thing.
I'm sure. Now you just got back from Gen Con, right?
Yeah.
Because you were doing some boards for Gale Force 9, was it? I believe.
It was Dream Pod 9.
Dream Pod 9.
Um,
That's right. Sorry.
they're the heavy gear blitz guys.
Hmm.
I did 3 boards for them. I just stuck to their lore, and like I said, I did research, and those tables took me a good 4 to 6 months because I did 3 full 4x4 tables, all scratch built terrain, and I painted everything as well.
Hmm.
So that's what I think also makes earlier when we were talking about what makes us different is I don't just paint. Like I went to school for graphic design, and I totally can do scratch build terrain as well. And that's something that, I'm excited about doing too, is you get something out of the box that you're creating from the ground up, and compared to, a model where you're just painting it and you're coming up with all these colors. But if you're able to build from the ground up, that's pretty awesome too. And that's what I actually went out to Gen Con for, was, to take the tables out, to, talk to people and just network as much as I could. And, I met a lot of great people, and I had a good time.
Yeah, and that's interesting because me as a painter, I much prefer to do game tables for a number of reasons. When we do that, it's something that I feel my customers enjoy because they end up in the store, so it's something they can play on. So I definitely enjoy doing the terrain, probably more than the armies themselves. If I got to do something, it's got to be like a really cool character. Otherwise, I usually call you or one of the other painters and go, "Hey, paint this for me," because I just don't have the time. So. Real quick, I guess we're gonna try this. Did you want to try to talk a little bit about the board that you put together, the Necron display board?
Yeah,
So we've
absolutely.
had some problems, and we may lose Ray's face while he's showing the pictures completely. He might have to get out and come back in, so forgive us. But sure, if we want to talk a little bit about, so Ray did this incredible battle board, and I still haven't seen it in person, but I've seen a lot of pictures of it, and the thing is huge. It lights up, et cetera, et cetera. You want to start by telling us a little bit like, I guess, how did you come up with the idea? What went in it? And, how do you go about doing something like this?
Um, the idea was so many different areas. I went, I'm actually a filler manager for Games Workshop as well. So I travel across the country wherever they need me. I actually ended up heading out to training over in Memphis, Tennessee, and they had this subterranean board that was amazing. It was a Skaven versus Undead. If anybody's been out there, it's just a great board, and that was part of it. It sparked my interest in, oh, I'm going to try to do a subterranean kind of thing. From there,
See, I thought they're the big props they had, the Elder Las Pistol or Shrinking. What the heck is it? The Elder has Shrinking. See, I haven't been out of 40K so long, I don't even know anymore. But yeah, I mean, the mask, those were incredible pieces, and I mean, they serve no purpose in the game other than to completely suck you in with the visuals, right?
oh, it was amazing. Yeah, and that's what I did, And then, because if anybody's ever been to the World of Battle in Memphis, Tennessee, it's amazing because they have probably a good 40 to 50 cases. Think of glass cases, display cases that are filled with nothing but armies from everybody that works there. And half of their staff is Golden Demon winners. So if you think of all these award winning paint jobs all in one confined area where you can see everything, it's the most inspiring thing if you're a hobbyist, because you just get to see and literally it's every army that GW makes are in those cases.
Hmm.
So to
Wow.
see those, it's just, and that was the thing. Like, basically, that trip inspired me to say, I'm gonna win Armies on Parade this year. Like, I said that, and I really meant that I was gonna try to win.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so yeah, again, so if you want to get some of those pictures on screen, let's see how
Yeah,
this works out for us.
let me
And
show
worst
you.
case scenario,
I'm gonna take
you
you
might
to.
have to get out and come back in if we can't get back.
Yeah, let me do this. Should be it here. Hold on one second.
All right, and give me just a minute. Apparently, Andrew's having problems seeing us on Google. I'm not sure why. Um, it's what I'm going to stream me. Wow. Yeah, there's some people that are.
I created a PowerPoint presentation for you guys. Having some issues.
No, just I'm reading some of the comments that are left, and some of them are questions. Mostly 6 millimeter rices a grain, and yeah, we can't see that. We're probably gonna have to go with the picture, I think, because that Oh, there we go. That we can see.
Let's see. Can you see
All right.
this?
Yeah, and why don't you talk to the
All right.
people a little
Well
bit
then,
about
I
this
don't. Let me try one more
board?
time for the slideshow. Oh, here we go.
I'm I'm gonna go see if I can figure out in the meantime while you talk to them about the
Can you see the
board.
slideshow now?
Let me see. I can see your drawings. That's what I'm looking at. Yep.
Are you guys? Okay, good. That's where we're going to start at. So
Okay.
basically, this is how I started everything. I drew multiple pictures of what I wanted the board to look like. Like you could see towards the top of the screen, that was what I wanted the front view of the top of the board to look like.
That
If
pyramid
you
area,
look to the
basically.
left, yeah,
Hmm.
where it looks like the pyramid, and then to the left and right of that, which to the far left are the obelisks, where I wanted to make that look like that was a portal where they were coming out as well. Um, and then there's some things that didn't make it in here, like this ship that's dead center in the middle of the screen right now. That was supposed to be a Doom site, but I actually scrapped the idea. I just was running out of time, so I had to kind of tighten up and just really work on the models that I needed on the board. Um, Plastic card, I used a bunch of it. I knew I was going to use an incredible amount of plastic card on everything. All the paneling, all the flooring was all plastic card. Um, Beneath that, there's the actual side view where it's showing the tomb stalker. And I'm sorry that my drawing wasn't that great, but it was just to more get a visual.
Well, it
And
works,
then,
and it's just a planning thing, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And then at the very bottom, that's actually the middle section and what I decided that was going to look like.
So
Let me go to the,
I
yeah.
see on your notes here, blue foam. I mean, I really don't know. When I do terrain, I really don't pay attention to the foam. Do you find that there's a difference? Is it just the density that changes, or?
Well, in Vegas, this was the only foam that I can actually find.
Oh,
There was no pink foam available. All that we could get in Vegas was blue foam, and the only place to get it was in Lowe's in Summerlin. So I had to drive out to Summerlin every time that I had to get a sheet. So finally, I was like, well, I'm going to buy 4 sheets at a time. And trying to fit that in the car is such a pain in the butt because they come in like 8 foot by 2 foot squares. So I was like, and I didn't want to break it all the time. I needed those sharp edges, and to cut blue foam, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
what do you does it work with? Like,
So
I normally use the hot foam cutter. It's just basically a piece of wire. The electricity goes through it and it heats up, so it kind of carves it. Do you use something different, or?
I use something that's very similar to that, but it's actually more of an industrial size.
Uh,
It's called hot wire. Hot wire store is where I got it from. It's almost like a table saw in the way that you use it. So it lays out on the table. You turn it on. It has like a little diode on the right side, and then or wherever you want to put it. And then from that, you basically are cutting it just like you would with a table saw.
oh, okay.
I don't know if I have any pictures of that. Yeah, but so this was the stasis room. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
The drawing. Okay, so the rows and rows of Necrons, along with the cryptop or canoptic spider right in the middle. That was that was my vision. That was one of the main things, And I just saw the Ghost Ark, and I had 3 of them already, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna really. I just decided to just go for it and use those. Yeah, I kind of had to scrap the Ghost Arks, but it was so worth it to get the end result of what it was. But yeah, that's the bottom level, and that's just the planning again.
So,
This
and this is
picture is actually
this is
okay.
the one underneath it. That's where you ended up. Didn't you put a mirror behind it or something to basically allow it to?
I did. I did. Yeah, this one, I'll go back to it. This one, I actually, if you look on the top of the screen, those were going to be rocks where the squiggly lines are. And then I knew I
Mhm.
was going to put mirrors on the back of it to extend out how far the Necrons actually appeared that they looked. So instead of having, I think I used 69 Necrons or 79 Necrons on that. Instead of having that, it basically doubled it in size. and it was pretty awesome. Like the visual effect of it, I think people really kind of was like, oh man, like it looks like there's so much more, and it keeps going. So I think that was a just something that I was thinking of, and I had to cut the mirror, and I broke two of the mirrors just trying to cut the mirror.
That's bad luck, right?
I felt like it was my lucky number is 13, so this is still a lucky year. But yeah, this is the mock-up right here. This is when I was just trying to visually see the size of it. So if you see the scale, that's a 28 millimeter model right there. So if you, that's basically the scale. It's more for scale, just to show what the scale is going to look like. Let's go to the next one. This is the cutting the foam process. So as you can see, I have all these lines to kind of center everything. From that, I cut this open stairs. This is where stairs ended up being. And then from that, I actually had to cut the stairs individually to make the stairs, and I gap filled all those gaps there. So that's actually what it looked like after it was done. And then I'll kind of show you. And then this is the obelisk. I was going to put gun turrets on the top, but again, sometimes when you're doing, I think, a project like this, you kind of have to scrap some things to save yourself some time to make sure that all the other things look tight. So that's kind of what I ended up doing. Um, and then that's just from a Lord of the Rings bit from one of their like walkways or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
From
then
the, I think it was one of the
it
terrain
was the
sets.
Mines of Moria,
Yeah.
right? The Mines of Moria, I think is what it was. And then this one is actually after I cut all the blue foam for the top level, um, before plastic cards and everything else. But yeah, this is all blue foam, and I had to shave all this. That was the other thing with the blue foam, because of all those lines, which you can see, you have to like sand that down so much just to try to lose some of those blue like those lines because there's such a huge gap of a line. And then here's after, yeah, see back there that glue, that foam fusion to the left side of the monolith.
Uh-huh.
That stuff was meant specifically for blue foam or foam. It's from the foam store, but that stuff, if you're gluing foam together, it's amazing. It will make it so it'll never come apart again.
Yeah, and I
So
think
it's so
actually
strong.
we used to carry this stuff in Flagstaff. I don't remember if it's the foam store or there's a company that actually sells to stores. So if you guys talk to your FLGS, they should be able to get because they have these really nice industrial kind of they do like blades and the router like you were talking about the big table router, but there's
Right,
stuff like
right.
styluses that you can do engravings with, so again, this is limited to your artistic talent, I guess, because I kind of suck at that, but I can cut a straight line. So, that at least works.
That's all you need. Yeah, and then you can see here too, all this plastic card that you're seeing on the bottom, like the
Hmm.
white up against the blue. That was all everything that I cut. That stuff took
Yeah.
forever. That was the longest
And for
process
this,
of this book.
for the sake of people that might not know, plastic card is.
What I was using, it's just actually a thin piece of plastic, but what I got smart in starting to use was, the for sale signs that are for,
Oh,
like, to try to sell your car or, a for rent sign, stuff like that.
yeah,
You can get
yeah.
them at any Walmart or anything like that. But I actually was using those. I cut those up, and for $1, you get a 18 by 16-inch sheet, and I've used so much of that. I probably used a good 4 or 5 signs of that for this board.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest actually, to go because places like Hobbytown and the craft store have plastic art, but you're right, that is a much cheaper alternative, especially considering just how much you need for a board that size.
Oh, honestly, I probably would never buy plastic like single sheet plastic card again because of it just worked. There was no reason for me not to try to spend less money on it.
Sure, sure.
So, all
And I'm
right.
sure if you're doing this
So,
for a client, that he appreciates that.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's a huge part of it is trying to save money and cut corners whenever you can as far as money wise, then that helps out a lot, especially on this board. This board cost me so much money. It's ridiculous. I don't even want to talk about it. So this is the carving, the initial carving that I did. Um, this carving was basically just one of the sides, and I like never worked with this technique before, but basically it was just me taking a butter knife and just kept carving until I got this formation that I wanted,
Uh-huh.
and just over and over again. You could see the blue foam everywhere. I probably had like a 2 foot tall pile of blue foam at one point.
That stuff looks like it gets everywhere.
Oh, it totally does. And then here's more overview of the bottom level of plastic card. So each piece of that was individually cut and just placed. Like this was the longest process by far. And then, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. I
Did I
just
lose you
went
guys?
quiet because you. Yep. Yeah, you're here. No, you're here.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so here's another view of the actually. Okay, so this is the bliss, and this is after I did the paint job. So what I did to create that glow effect, though, I just taped off both sides of it in that like 45-degree angle. So I put masking tape down, and I actually sprayed with the airbrush to create that effect. And then from that, I just did layer upon layer of lighter color to bring it out to make it look like it's actually glowing.
Okay, so you definitely used over the airbrush with this, and I know that a lot of people. I've done a. If you guys are familiar with what a Realm of Battle board is, it's basically a gigantic 4x6 board that you can buy from Games Workshop, your local hobby store, et cetera, et cetera. And I resorted to spray cans. Now, if we're talking about airbrushes, I know that the most important thing usually tends to be the compressor. What did you find with that? Your airbrush, is it like, would you spend more money on the airbrush itself? You think the compressor is the big expense? What would you say?
You can find a decent price compressor. The compressor is probably only going to cost you just over $100. I'd say honestly like $110 at most. You can find stuff honestly at Hobby Lobby for pretty cheap. The biggest thing to note that when you're getting an airbrush that you need a moisture trap. You should always have a moisture trap and something to be able to gauge how much PSI that you're getting out of the compressor.
Hmm.
If you don't have the moisture trap, what can happen is that your compressor can start seizing on you, or you can have more water coming out of the tip of your airbrush, which will make your paint bleed more. So it's really important to actually have that moisture trap to actually get away, like, because at the end of it all, you're supposed to clean out your moisture trap every time that you use your airbrush. In Vegas, we're fortunate that we don't really have humid weather, so from the environment, we don't really have to. I don't have to do it as much. But if you live anywhere else, you really have to do it.
Okay.
And then let's go to the glow stuff. So this shot is actually, you can kind of see the top level where the glow. I used the EL wire, which
What kind of
I
wire? I'm
usually use
sorry.
it for like computers.
What kind
It's
of wire?
EL wire.
Uh, STL? C.
EL, Echo Lima,
Okay.
Echo Lima wire.
Okay.
So that basically, I used, I think, an 18-foot, and this is where it got me too. So when I first was doing it, I was like, oh, I'm only going to need about 4 feet. But then I started thinking about it, and this is where, I'm glad I read all their stuff on their website, was like, yeah, you might only need 4 feet, but you also are going to need it per each line that you do. And then at the end of it all, I think I used 18 feet of the EL wire.
So let me see
So,
if I understand you right on this. This whole wire actually conducts like kind of like a fiber optic kind of situation,
correct, yes, absolutely.
and
Yeah,
the light
they
source
use it for
is
computers. I
Uh-huh.
think that the main thing they use it for is like lighting up computer, like the whenever you see a desktop and it has all the wiring in it that's all glowing.
Ah,
This is
okay.
what they use it for the most.
Okay. And
But
so the light source is actually somewhere in here, and you're just and is it the light that's colored a certain way, or the color comes from the tube from the wire itself?
the tube is actually colored like
Okay.
a emerald green color.
Hmm.
But from that, it radiates the color once you actually turn it on. So it
Okay.
just brightens it up. But what's weird about it is that the sizes for the EL wire, I think this was a 2.6 millimeter in thickness, and they said that this one was the absolute brightest. For some
Hmm.
reason, when you go larger, it's not as bright, and when it's smaller, it's not as bright either. But the 2.6 millimeter, for some reason, they said it was the brightest. So that's what I went for. I was like, the brighter, the better,
Well, yeah,
especially because,
it's definitely very dark, and once you get that top on there, without that
right,
light in there, I don't know how it looks in real life, but from this picture, I can tell you it looks, which is a cool effect, but yeah,
right.
you lose your models otherwise in there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely did. And that was the one thing too. This one is more. Sorry about the huge glare in the top left-hand corner, but I'm sorry about it's blurry too. But I just could not get focused on anything specific with my camera because it was so dark, and then the flash
Hmm.
and then the glare. So this is just a general look at it, so you can kind of see what it looked like on the inside. There was two power generators in the back. Um, and I have some better pictures towards the end, but I just wanted to give you more of a visual. And then the statues to the
Sure.
left side, left and right, those were actually the old pariah models, which, if anybody knows Necron lore, those are like the last models or the last survivors that actually had skin on them before they became robots. So I had to throw them in. Okay, and this is the GW photo. I'm sorry that it's blurry again, but they didn't take that like it's all pixelated, but you can kind of see it a little bit more. They used a straight bright glare, so you can't see the glow effect anywhere. And then this is again another blurry picture of the hordes of Necrons. And then I'll just go to the last one. And then this is the actual full board once it was presented. So that's what it looked like, and that's what I was judged. That's when they judged me. You guys there? Anybody there?
Mm. Yeah, okay. I lost you for a minute. If you want to go back to the other two pictures, we got
Yeah, sure.
the final one where they judged you, but the other two, it was
Okay,
apparently
so
looking at my noggin.
sorry again. This is grainy, but I pulled it directly from the GW website. Um,
Sure, and hopefully we don't get
this
sued. But um, but this exemplifies though as that as focus
I
as I
hope
mean.
not because it's
Oh,
mine.
okay, all right. If you took it, we're good. But it does exemplify, right, how good that mirror worked, because you could sit there and paint a million things, and this is something that in movies is done fairly often with well, they used to do it, not just CG, but you would do a matte painting and put it
Right,
behind there. In the terms of miniatures, I've seen it used where you would do like scenery leading out into distance, like mountains and things like that, and put the painting behind it. But
right.
the mirror is a cool idea because I wouldn't sit there and paint like try to draw these guys and paint them on a matte painting. The mirror, lazy man's out, but I like it. I love it. So,
Absolutely. And, well, this is the thing. Like I still, and that was, some people were kind of upset. I think that they were like, "Oh, you use smoke and mirrors," and I was like, "But did I really? Because I still painted 79 models. That's still 79 models on the
sure.
bottom that I painted." So some people are giving me
And
a
to be
hard
fair,
time,
that
but I
is
was like,
your.
really?
But to be fair, that is your army. I mean, that is what you would deploy on the battlefield, right? When you play a game, you're not going to sit
Oh,
there with. Well,
absolutely.
I guess if you're playing an apocalypse game, but let's be realistic here. It's a display board for your army. So
Right, right. Yeah, and that was my main thing. I wanted it to tell a story when I did it. I didn't want it to just be, oh, here's my army, here's what I'm presenting to you. I wanted it to be like something. Every part of this board you look at, you can see something from it. So
sure.
from the sides, the top, the bottom, everything. That's, I mean, except for the back, of course, but everything has a story. And, my whole thought process was if they're coming along this, all of a sudden somebody sees it, like an Imperial Guardsman sees this above the sands, and all of a sudden they don't realize what's underneath. It's just the tip of the iceberg before all these millions and millions of Necrons are underneath on a tomb world. So that's just what my thought process was.
And how long did this take you to build?
This took me, I'd say start to finish, it took me about a good, I'd say about 4 to 6 months,
Okay.
just from start to finish. Because I went to training in February over at GW,
Hmm.
and then let's see if this lets me get out. There we go. I'm
Hey,
out.
you're back in.
Yeah. So in February is when I went out to Memphis, and then from there is actually when I started. Right when I got back from Memphis, I started in February. So it was a long process.
Okay, cool. Well, I think, let me check real quick, see if there are any questions remaining here. Looks like, oh, well, I might have found you a commission. Mike needs a whole bunch of, well, some models. Yeah, so you'll have to look through the posts on the Google Hangout page because there's several people there asking you questions about work. So I guess what's your typical, and I know this is very subjective to what the customer wants, what the model looks like, but what's typical rates? I mean, do you charge by the hour, the paint level? A lot of people, and I don't know who's watching. I know we have some board gamers that have recently gotten into miniature painting because we got a lot of these games now that are miniature heavy, and they might not have an idea. And give us an idea. It's like if I wanted to get something painted from you, what are we looking at?
Um, yeah, well, I have three different levels that I kind of go with. Level one, it's basic. It's not. There's probably a single highlight. The bases are going to be very basic, straight. Um, just very basic. But what I try to do too, and I don't think a lot of companies do this, is I try to do it so my level one paint jobs at any point you want to take it up to the level two or level three, you can bring it back, and I will be more than happy to boost it up for you, of course, to pay the difference out.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it just goes based on level. On my website, like honestly, my rates I've set them. They're all on the website, and it's really it goes also by what the people want to, because sometimes they have a lot more vehicles, and I'll try to cut a break because vehicles are the larger the model, of course, the more time is going to go into it. A lot of it now, the way that I'm doing things is airbrush work, but the finer detail work on vehicle models, there's a lot more to do. So it just depends. Like I try to help people out. I'll give discounts whenever I can. Um, but generally, once you hit about $500, anything above that, I will give you a discount of 10% off of whatever the final cost is. But I only do that, because what ends up happening is if you have something and you have a full army and then later on you want to add something to it, it takes me more time to go back on those things sometimes than to do it all at the same exact time. So it's harder for me to do that. So I have to charge you the initial cost. I won't be able to give a discount once off of that initial, but I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm kind of
No,
rambling.
so let me see if I got you right. If I wanted to get something painted, it would be better to just save up my money and go, look, this is my army, I need it done. And I would imagine from a painting standpoint, it'd be easier for you to keep it matched and make sure everything works.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what do you do if somebody comes out to you? Let's just, I have like 12 to 13,000 points worth of Tyranids, and I don't have any of the new stuff. And all of a sudden I get the 40K bug again and decide I want to play. And I go, hey, I want you to match up this new model that I just bought with my old existing army. How difficult is that? Can you do that or?
I absolutely I can't say that I always can, because here's what ends up happening too, is that if GW doesn't make a color, or maybe you got a color from somewhere else, I always can't color match it. But I can really get close. And again, that goes back to my test model theory. I will do a test model to ensure that it's what I'm trying to get. So sometimes, I'll try my best, but sometimes it's not always going to happen. I haven't run into it yet to where I haven't been able to do it, because you referred someone to me that had a Necron rusted out themed army, and I color matched that one, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because he didn't know the colors. He bought it from someone else. But, just in trial and error, I was able to get the effect that he was looking for, and then we kind of updated his effect as well. So that's the thing, is because of that, I'm more than willing to color match whatever people have.
Okay, cool. Well, I think, unless you have something else for us, we are about ready to wrap this up. I wanted to remind everybody that we will, why don't you tell everybody how can they get a hold of you if they want to get something painted right now? Where would they go to?
You can go to either my website, flexcoastdesign.com, or you can go ahead and like me on Facebook. It's Flex Coast Design on there as well. And just get in contact with me. I'm at the shop whenever I can. I'm down at Little Shop. Those are the two best ways. By email, through the website is really the fastest way of getting to me, and through my Facebook page as well, because I'm always on there and I try to update that stuff. And you can always see what I'm doing too on my Facebook page, because I will try to update it daily to show just new things that I've done. And I did a model in Gen Con for someone, and then they barely sent me the pictures, so I posted that up I think 2 days ago. So yeah, I'm always trying to update my Facebook page. So that's another way of just seeing things.
Okay, well, for you guys that managed to miss the beginning or want to see this again, we are going to put this on our YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, it's going to post immediately as soon as we end the broadcast. I will probably then eventually, whenever I get a moment of time, go through and try to edit all the hang on for a second. I will try to go through and edit sort of these kind of things and make it a little more polished. But for the most part, it should be the way we have it here. I will put a link to Ray's Facebook page and website, both on this Google Plus event you see over here, and also on our website at shopofmagic.com. So you should be able to get a hold of Ray one way or the other, all right? So I think that's about it. Am I right, Ray?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys, for coming out.
All right. Oh, one more thing. Next Saturday, Ray's going to join us again, I believe, because we're going to talk about Gen Con. He was there a couple of weeks ago. What was hot, what was not, what he liked, and maybe we can talk a little bit about what the transporting battle boards, of course. How many states did you go through?
I did it from Vegas to Indiana. I think it was 3, 4, like 5 or 6 states. It was
How
rough.
many hours and how many people in the car with you?
It was me by myself. It was a 26-hour drive according to Google Maps. I drove one day 22 hours just because I wanted to make it home. I was so tired. I was
Well,
started seeing double. I saw Vegas lights, and I was like, I'm home.
so I guess then if you guys want to join us next Saturday at 2 o'clock, we'll talk to Ray. We'll also talk to, I believe, JT and Saint. They join us. I'm trying to get one more person, and we'll see how that works out. It'll be interesting to multiple people, see how bad we can botch that up. But thanks for your patience. Sorry for all the issues with the technical problems, but we'll get these fixed up eventually, and maybe we'll look like we know what we're doing. So anyways, all right, Ray, thanks, man. I'll talk to you
All
at the
right.
shop, okay? See
Thanks,
you
guys.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.